Welcome back to the channel. This is a video that I wasn't sure if I wanted to make. There's certain times where I'm not sure if I want to even talk because I feel like I'm not progressing, like I'm actually making a difference in a good way, and it's good for me to talk or not about these things. So that's why for for a few weeks, I've been ruminating on making a talk on this. But the good thing is that I noticed that my speaking has become better on camera. So this time I'm gonna play some GTA on the PC, and then at the same time I'm gonna be talking. And this topic is gonna be about, I've touched on it before, of like a woman that is delusional, and specifically the country that I come from is Turkey, and how they're more delusional for in their own perspectives, and in the dating world they are delusional most of the time. And why that is it because of the parents? Is it because of friends? Is it because of social, gatherings, or just on the street having a usual day? So it's partly of everything. When I kind of reflect off what I've seen in the past. So in the past, I've had a lot of knowledge, but I haven't compiled it. I haven't like brought it together. And when I bring it together, things make a lot more sense in this area, for example. So a lot of women these days are delusional. And the point I'm about to make is there are delusional men, of course, as well. And I don't want to oversimplify things and say it's because of social media, or it's because, modern people in their 20s, 30s are not raised well at the times. I'm not really going to say that. I'm going to instead talk about the kind of background that I have. The background of, by the way, I need to have a shower. After this, I'm going to gym. So I'm planning to have a shower after that. The women that are from the background that I come from, the Turks, in Turkey, the environment is very different. Every country's environment is very different. So it creates different kinds of people, different kinds of men, different kinds of women. The men in the past, so 40 years old now to 60 years old, they're usually very, very dependent on women. They don't do much housework. Some of them don't do any housework whatsoever. They rely a lot on women and also they let women to take charge of the household, a lot of them. And they call it fair, they call it, the woman is the mother in many households, and it gives them the right to kind of carry the decisions that the family should make. I think this is not good. I think it leads down a road that is, I would say it's not healthy for any of the two to be very, very dominant of what's going to happen to the family. But if I had to pick one, it would be the man should be choosing more than the woman. In the Turkish background, it's not like that. So for foreign people, I make this video because there's a lot of foreign people that are not aware of the structures that foreigners have and the way that they live. It is very, very impactful in their own lives. And then when they come into the UK, like as an immigrant, and then they start to settle in the UK, they start to settle in Canada, they start to settle in France and whatnot. Africans are like this as well. Different people from different cultures. The Chinese also. They've got different expectations and different environments that they grew up in. So the topic that I'm more focused on is the women basically. Not specifically Turkish women, but women that are like brought up in Turkey, the ones that are kind of had that background. And that background is a lot of men in Turkey, doesn't matter age 20, doesn't matter age 50. A lot of men are chasing women, and validating women a lot, In the UK, I'm looking around me, I'm just telling you what I see. There is a lot less men that chase women than Turkey. In Turkey, it's very high. Average women here, like a 4, 5 out of 10 women, which is completely okay. Being average is completely okay. I want to like reiterate this. Same with guys also, like being average is completely fine. And it's healthy, it's good. What's most important is how you feel, how your days go, what habits you have, what you do, and how you feel, what you think is 100% way more important. So they're like average, they're average women, 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, and they genuinely have the belief that they're a 7, 8 out of 10. And it comes from a lot of attention from men. They get a lot of attention. I don't see it in other parts of. I mean, there is definitely that in other parts of Europe, but in the UK, for example, definitely not. 100% no, In the UK, it's very casual. Like, you see, and I see a lot of 4 out of, I mean, the 5 out of 6 out of 10s do get attention, but nowhere near as much as Turkey. In Turkey, they're like as relevant as 8 out of 10s in here, which is crazy. But that's pretty much the structure. There's a lot of, I don't know, like lusting men. I think that's the word for it. And they lust, they hope for a woman to kind of save them. It's really, really strange. So they got some self problems, these guys, and they look around for women to save them pretty much. It's partially codependence, like codependent people behave in this way, but I don't know what else is causing them to be this dysfunctional, because not all of them are codependent. Some of them are just lusting and immature. There's that as well. With guys, there is definitely a lot of immaturity when it comes to in Turkey. I'm not talking about maybe the young generation. I'm talking about especially the ones that are 30 years old, 40 years old. There's a lot of overweight men that are desperate to be with young, beautiful, just on the exterior sort out after women. But here it's kind of not like that. The guys are at like the pub, the ones that are overweight, the ones that have kind of a stable job, maybe they have good sort of money as well. They're just looking after the average women, like the in their 30s, mid 30s, 40s. They're not looking for the 20-year-old women. In Turkey, it's very, very popular that they are looking for the 20-year-old women, and they have the genuine belief that they can be with these women. They genuinely believe it. And the problem with that is the genuine belief of you're going to be with a 20-year-old woman. When you're 40 years old, you look like a 3 out of 10 man overall, if you compare to every other age category, all the other men. Yeah, you don't have anybody, like body type. You've got some bicep muscles, and that's about it. Your legs are not very muscular, you're not toned, and you still have this belief that you could be with these, young, some of them in their prime women, and the women, they eat it up, they gobble it up, they think they are worth way more than they actually are. So the problem here is that these women, they go to the grocery store, they go run some errands, they pick up a delivery, they go to, I don't know, the pharmacy, wherever, and they've got these men that are lusting over her. Doesn't really happen too much in the U. Sometimes it does, but in Turkey it's way more often. And so they have this belief that they think they are valued at that amount. So if that day, let's say, 5 guys are like kind of looked at her, are interested in her, she genuinely believes like that day 5 guys want to be with her, 5 guys want to date with her in that day, for example, which is not true. That's the delusion basically. With guys, it's different to girls, because if girls look at you, it's not only to be in bed with you, it's kind of like, I wouldn't mind dating you also. But with guys, it's not necessarily like that. With many guys, they would not be interested in dating whatsoever, but they would still be interested in being with you in bed. And so that doesn't apply in the opposite way. And many women are not like aware of this. Many women, they don't have this in their head. It's just going to come from experience. And they end up alone. They end up alone at mid-30s, mid-40s. And there's no, they struggle to understand why the guys have sort of deceived them. Whereas it's not actually like that. It's just that they've been hanging around with the guys that didn't actually want to be with them. So if the women that are listening to this, if you don't want to be in this situation, your filter system has to be really good. You need a really good filter system. Most women won't reach that stage of having a good filter system. And so they don't get to have the experience of which guy is using me just for bed and which guy actually genuinely wants to be with me and spend time with me, I think dating should go back to the basics of, if you want to think what's healthy and what's not, back to when you were kids, basically. When you were kids, what would be pleasant for you? You need to think in that way. If any sort of male, any sort of guy, if they're in your proximity, maybe you're swimming with them, maybe you're having guitar lessons together, whatever that is a bit childish, a bit pleasant, that is what's healthy. And a lot of people have forgotten this these days. I don't know what the reason why is. I don't know if it's social media or if it's change in kind of environment, change of society. I just know that the way that, for example, these women that are brought up, they're brought up by mothers that are they're training them to be valuable. They're training their daughters to be entitled, to have a high ego, to believe that they're special, even when, and you look at a daughter, you look at a girl that is young age, that is 10 years old, 15 years old, 5 years old, and you want to make them feel good and make them feel like they're special. But you realize there's consequences for these sort of things. Like, there is reality that is way more... reality doesn't care if you feel special or not. Reality doesn't care if I'm disabled. I'm 1 in 2 million or something like that. I don't know what the figure is. But there's about 200, 300 people in the world that has my disability, Sheldon Hall syndrome. It doesn't mean that I'm special, Even if you're at those kind of rare odds, it doesn't mean that you're special. And these women, they are brought up in a way that ignoring reality is sort of a norm. It's sort of feeling good becomes a norm as they grow up. And it's not a good way to parent. It's not a good way to raise a daughter, because it puts her into a limbo of, who am I? Who am I, and what is reality, and what is the marketplace that people say is a valuable woman? They genuinely don't understand it. They don't, I've seen this in person a lot, And some of them lose their mothers, some of them, their mothers are living and they just put them in a wrong path. But all of them, I've noticed, they're either missing the mother or they're also missing the father. The father's like not present with the daughter, not spending time with her, rather sees her as almost like an asset, you know. And that kind of approach that they give to their daughter, it makes her feel like an asset as well. And that she doesn't feel like a person, even from day one. So she feels like when she becomes 20 years old, 30 years old, she thinks being an asset or a liability is kind of normal because she was that way even when she was 10 years old. You know, there's no change. So she kind of seeks it, you know, even if it's subconsciously, she seeks the being some sort of asset or something to a man in this case. And that is a shame. That's what I've seen. I've seen there's a lot of people that are trying to be someone in Turkey, whereas in the UK it's not that way. It's not that way whatsoever. In the UK, a lot more people are accepting. Um, you know, in the UK, this is not something that is new, by the way. You can ask anyone that is Turkish, or it's like a general knowledge that yeah, people do try to be someone, and people do try to say that my uncle lives in New York, and my whatever, you know, I got this brand from Zara, and this is where I usually get clothes. They try to be someone that they're not. They try to play a persona that they're not actually. And that's the sort of dysfunctional beliefs and dysfunctional views that they have over themselves that is causing this kind of delusion. So delusion just causes a lot of women to be single, you know, a lot of women to be hating people, frustrated, sad, crying, going after one man to the other. Like there's a lot of man switching. Like many of the average women in Turkey have been with like 10 different men, you know, 10 different men. It's just a count minimum at least, and it's become a norm. They believe that the way to get through it is to test as many men as possible to see which one is the right one for them, but it's actually not that way. It's really, honest to God, it's not that way. It's important to test different partners, 100% that's true, but their filter system is awful, it's rubbish. And so that causes a lot of people to be selfish, sad, ignorant, avoidant, you know, just a lot of stuff, depressive, because they can't find what they believe that they need. They need love, they need man, they need, that's an important word. If somebody needs somebody else, it's not a good sign. It means someone is lacking a lot. So even the ones that do want, which is the healthier version, wanting a person, that's good. It's just they have a crap filter system, and they have this perceived value that they're not actually that value. They believe they're an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. They're not. I can tell you for sure that they're not. 80% of them that believe that way are actually 4 out of 10. Some even 3 out of 10. Honest to God. Their personality doesn't really develop because they get so much validation from men that look like as if they are interested in them, you know. The men are just selling lies, and for the women, attention is a currency. Attention is like, you can really mess up a woman's life with attention, you know, depending on where you steer it towards. But that's what they do. They just say a lot of pretty things, pretty lies. You're this way, you're that way, I think you're great, you can have a career in here, blah, blah, blah. And it causes the women to become delusional. You know, they become delusional, they don't know who to speak to, they don't know who to have friendship with, to get advice from. And it causes just chaos in their lives, most of all. And you see a lot of unhappy women that are taking, photos of themselves, posting it on social media, playing the persona and hoping, crossing their fingers, that a guy will finally bite a bullet and accept them into their lives. And that's the sad part, because it's often not the case. 80% of the time it's not the case. The guy doesn't look at you and he's like, oh wow, this is a fantastic picture. I think I'm going to consider this person as my wife. Most men, 80-90% of men, they're not going to pick you because your profile picture looks nice. That's just going to get you through the door. Through the door doesn't mean anything when it comes to a relationship. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next.